The greatest anime ever. If you were to go and ask 100 people what the greatest anime ever was, you'd probably come out with a million different answers, some that are valid and some that make me want to switch places with Eren's mom. But generally we point towards anime like Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, Naruto, One Piece, Code Geass, Cowboy Bebop. The list just goes on and on. There's so many anime that people consider to be the greatest of all time, but we still haven't really reached that conclusion. You can look at my anime list and see that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is at the top and has been at the top for a very long time, but most other people will argue that that's simply because the fanbase is just a bunch of Discord moderator crayon eaters that downvote everything else that momentarily takes the #1 spot. But the answer that will probably come up the most, or at least one of the most, is Attack on Titan. Now hear me out, ending haters. You can't tell me that before 2021, this wasn't the most popular TV show on the planet, and for a good reason. Season 4's release was so popular that it had people thinking that Eren's declaration of war was happening in real life just because it was trending on Twitter. The only things going to war back then were Crunchyroll servers every time Mappa dropped a new Attack on Titan episode, and Twitter users when they saw a single pixel of CGI. But obviously this is all before 2021, before the end of Season 4 Part 1, and before the end of that fucking virus, and before the infamous conclusion to Attack on Titan's manga. I think I speak for most readers when I say we expected something big for Attack on Titan's ending, especially considering how many big twists and turns the story had taken beforehand, and how it was really seeming to be built up to be this one giant climax that would bring everything together. Well, we got something big, alright. A big fucking outbreak of haters. It was after this ending where Attack on Titan's popularity started to go downhill fast, to the point where the release of the new seasons weren't nearly as exciting as the last. Now this is partly due to the ending, but also partly due to the fact that Attack on Titan's release date was absolutely fucked up, and there were like 19 different parts for the final season. There could have literally been 7 seasons. Attack on Titan's popularity diminished significantly. You could even see it on my anime list where the final season got downvoted from like 1st place to like 15th because of the ending that wasn't even animated in that part of the season. So after the ending and after Mappa decided to stretch out the final season, the series started to feel a little more dead. And by a little more dead, I mean really dead, like Marco did. But does a bad ending ruin a masterpiece of a show? Is the ending really bad? Do I even give a shit? No. There's more to this masterpiece than this ending, which is why I'm going to spend exactly 0 more seconds talking about this ending. When it comes to the story of Attack on Titan, I'd find it near impossible to find another story with as much exposition and detail as Attack on Titan. One Piece could be a close second, or even a close first if you really think that, but it's definitely not the same. Aside from Attack on Titan not taking 1,000 episodes to build this outrageous story, there are still some more significant differences. Attack on Titan does something special with its mystery. It tells you where all the answers are in the first episode, and literally it gives you a key, but you ain't seeing shit until way later. The mystery and the story are built up from the beginning, but kind of pushed to the side to make room for the absolute mayhem that are the first 3 seasons. What this does is keeps your questions in the back of your mind and builds intrigue for why things are the way they are, so that when they are revealed, it's like this giant multipour where everything gets connected and shines a giant light on the real purpose of the story. Let me put this into perspective. Let's consider someone who's watching Attack on Titan for the first time, wondering what the fuck are the Titans, and why is this big naked anatomy chart seems so much more important than all the other ones? Why is he the one breaking down the wall? How is he even bigger than the wall? How are the walls there in the first place? You get the idea. The introduction of the basement key makes them think that that's where all the answers are, but they kind of forget about it since half the cast is getting chewed up like Nico Kato's KFC order, and Eren dies? But wait, he comes back? He transformed into a Titan in a Titan. So the questions build up along with the action and the intensity of the series, all the while every answer is being accompanied by at least 10 more questions, until we actually reach the basement. Because in the basement, we get that connection where everything is joined together, only for it to have been a tiny speck in the even greater story that we never saw. That being Season 4, where the real Attack on Titan begins. Everything in Season 3 and before it was like all of that action, all of the questions that we had building up. The basement revealed everything as this big light that shined on another thing that was the real story of Attack on Titan, which is Season 4. And that can kind of destroy the idea, the stupid idea, that Attack on Titan was best ending after season 3, which completely defeats the entire purpose of the story. Another characteristic that makes Attack on Titan's story top tier is the ridiculous yet meticulously planned out foreshadowing. Every major plot reveal has an immense layer of symbolism and foreshadowing behind it. When a story wants to make a major turn, it must make sense. It can't just pull a black Zetsu and expect the fans to be completely cool with it, especially Attack on Titan fans. Things have to have meaning and connect to the characters. Take one of the most iconic moments in the show, Reiner and Bertolt's betrayal. These are two characters that we consider allies, but there were numerous moments where it was almost obvious that there was something suspicious going on about them. Then when you look at something like the Attack Titan being able to see the future, you can see the foreshadowing with what Kruger said, which by the way was placed in the perfect moment at the end of a chaotic season. Again, when we get all those questions answered, this motherfucker releases another load of his confusion fluid onto us, and we're left with even more questions than we started with. Not to mention that the manga foreshadowed the ending 138 chapters and 11 years apart, just going to show the direction that Isayama had planned from the beginning of the story to the end. So all the ending haters saying that he had a different idea for the ending and he changed it, even though he might have said something like that, his rough idea for the ending was pretty much the same because it was literally in the first chapter. Attack on Titan is a story that follows a deterministic path and that even goes through the author's writing style, which just shows that the author was so invested and connected to his series, which is why so much of it feels real. Listen, I don't give a single people view Eren after the final episode because I still think he's worthy of a top tier protagonist nomination. The way this character goes from point A to Z is completely unique and fits with the world and supporting characters perfectly. With the story so heavily revolving around freedom, it only makes sense that the protagonist is a character chasing a freedom that constantly gets questioned and twisted by the reality of the outside world that he initially thought would give him that freedom. Does that make sense? Not knowing why things happened the way they did or why he was thrust into such a situation, Eren is a character that is forced to make decisions that he knows will risk the people he cares about and especially his freedom. Alright, I'll shut up. I know there's already been about 200 Eren videos, but what I will not shut up about is the supporting cast. It's hard to pinpoint exactly the antagonist for this show, but I guess Reiner would probably be the main candidate. He's a traumatized soldier whose opinions and beliefs about the world are also constantly questioned like Eren. Both of them seeing the two sides of the world creates a genius dynamic between the protagonist and the antagonist, one that kind of gets flipped on its head in the final season, just going to show how well both of them fit into their roles. It's that two sides of the same coin shit that's been referenced more times than I care to count. The cast's unique goals all tie into the same idea of freedom that connects them all together as people and unites them against the big threat at the end of the story, which is ironically the one who wanted freedom the most but gave up on his dream and died, like a certain chatty leader who should have been revived. Both Eren and Erwin were two of my favorite characters who grew to where they put the dreams of those around them and the overarching goal of mankind over their own selfish dreams and found freedom only as a result of giving up on their dreams and dying. The cast of Attack on Titan is a unique blend of personalities and aspirations that all grow in different yet similar ways to tackle the colossal theme of freedom. Even characters that I used to think were there just to be fodder like John or Connie grew into compelling and supporting characters that added another element of growth and complexity in how they had to adapt to their unique circumstances as people who didn't have really any special powers but had a duty and a role to play in the advancement of humanity. They kind of represent those soldiers who fight for the Survey Corps, not having any special powers but dedicating their lives to humanity. Literally dedicating their hearts. And then we have Gabby, who's a great parallel to Eren from season 1, embodying what it's like for the people on the other side who we weren't fully accustomed to. She often gets hated on, but she's actually an excellent embodiment of the ignorance that Marleyans have for the demons they knew nothing about. I'm just kidding, fuck Gabby. Attack on Titan is a story that grips you with its horrifying themes and intense climaxes that seem to be prevalent in almost every episode. The story develops from good to great to phenomenal to masterpiece, with every season adding a new element of holy fuck to the already monumental and complex story. To not be a fan of this series is fine, but to deny what it's done for anime and the stories and characters that it was able to create in a time where anime was probably the most competitive is honestly just disrespectful. That's why I think Attack on Titan is the greatest anime of all time. Maybe.